Hi, this is Diana.
Hi, Diana. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. So the last four digits of my phone are 2726.
Okay, I got you.
Thank you.
It's 54.
When I say it, how's that? That'll work? Thanks.
Testing. Yes.
Testing. Called order Kent County Levy Court Committee meeting, Kent County Administrative Complex, 555 Bay Road, Dover, Tuesday, October 20, 2020. Levy Court Chamber Room 203 at 7 p.m. sharp. Mr. Pedamage.
Thank you, Mr. President. Before we begin the committee meeting, just a word about the process here for both those in the audience and those who may be joining over the conference line. We are broadcasting the meeting over a conference line. We're also showing the exhibits that we have on the screen via WebEx. And any folks who may be joining this meeting through the conference line may participate at the appropriate times for public comment. And we ask that you, at that appropriate time, we'll ask you to *1 your phone, and that will enable us to have you enter the meeting room via your voice and offer your comments. And we'll remind folks throughout the meeting at the appropriate time how and when to do that. This is an official proceeding of the Levy Court. It is being recorded, and we ask that for the benefit of folks who may be joining us on the conference line, that we proceed our comments by stating our name for the record, and so folks can know who's speaking. Mr. President, at this time, I'll turn the floor back to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pedamage. Let the record show that we have 6 commissioners present, along with the county administrator and the county attorney. That being said, Administration Committee, Mr. Angel.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ms. Barkowski, you're up, please.
Thank you. Before I get started tonight, I wanted to introduce the newest member of the Kent Economic Partnership, Shannon Heel. She comes to us. She is a business developer with the Kent Economic Partnership, and we're really, really excited to have her as part of the team. She's been working about a month, and absolutely has been amazing what we've been able to accomplish in this last month. So, Shannon, meet the commissioners.
Hi, everyone. Like Linda said, I'm Shannon Heel. I joined the Kent Economic Partnership about a month ago. I'm really excited to be here and learn everything from Linda. A little bit about me: I have always had a business development background and sales. So I previously worked for Breakthrough Beverage and ATI Physical Therapy. So I'm excited to bring all of that experience here.
Tell them where you live.
Oh, and I do live in Smyrna.
Good.
So she's from Kent County. Any questions for Shannon? We're lucky to find a Kent County girl that had that experience, that wanted to work with the partnership. So we're excited. I think I go back one slide. Can I go back one? That's the end. Hold on. Okay. I thought it had KEP at the beginning. No? Okay. No problem. We're missing a slide. Anyway, it's a pleasure to be able to update the commissioners tonight on some of the things that we've been doing. I think the last time I was here, we hadn't really sealed a lot of deals yet, and we were working towards that. So tonight, I think, is a little bit of a celebration for all of us, because I think we've all worked together. The commissioners, the economic partnership, the municipalities have all worked together to make these things happen. I hope I'm going. I think I'm at the back end of this thing, right? Can you get me to the front? There you go. I thought it had KEP in the front. Okay, anyway, that's tonight's of the KEP update to Levy Court. Thank you. Now, let's see if I can get it going the right way. There you go. So I want to first I want to talk about our wins, because I think all of us should be proud that Central Delaware has some wins to actually talk about. Independent Metal Straps. This is the old Standard Distributing facility. They have 12 to 15 new manufacturing jobs, about $5 million worth of investment. They make a single strap for government. It's a metal strap, and it's basically a machine shop in there. So, and what we're hoping to do at a certain point is to invite some of the Levy Court commissioners, and we do a manufacturing tour through Kent County, so you can see some of these places, and we'll do a couple different tours so we're not all together at the same time. And then everybody's aware of this MVP Shoreline. This took a lot of work on the Levy Court part. Brooks Bantam making phone calls, the Levy Court commissioners approving tax abatements and strategic funds, but there's 80 manufacturing jobs, 17.2 million worth of investment, and the reuse of a facility that was vacant. So we're pretty excited about them. They're gearing up. Their equipment came in finally from Germany, and they're setting up their lines, and they did agree for us to come out and do a tour in January if anybody would like to see that facility. It's pretty high tech what they're doing with the vinyl extrusion. In that same building, USA Fulfillment, they're a fulfillment company that was located in Chestertown. They had a small warehouse in Dover. They're the tenant that ended up in the PPG building, just because it was a perfect storm. Well, I happened to be in a meeting that they were in, and I said, do you want to expand? And they said, yeah, we're looking at, we might get a contract with Johnson & Johnson for a pharmaceutical fulfillment. They landed the contract and they needed the space. So they're going to expand up to 100 jobs in there. And it's amazing. They took half the building and it's all racks to the ceiling for their fulfillment operation. So when we go visit, I think you'll be impressed with that operation. And then NKS, consolidation of 2 warehouse distribution centers. That's right south of Smyrna. Over 150 jobs, 22 million worth of investment. We've helped them with their TIF, which is the Transportation Infrastructure Fund, financing their application, that process. We've helped them with some other areas, but that's exciting. That's 150 jobs landing in central Delaware. Avalon, this is the company that took over the Dover Post building. They're bringing in 2 manufacturing operations. One makes plastic trays for testing, and the other one makes helmet covers for the military. And they're hiring, right now I'm renovating that building. And then Project Cape, which is a corrugated box manufacturer, just passed Dover Planning Commission last night, unanimously. So within 2 months, they've been able to get their permitting done through the city of Dover, and that is a 457,000 square foot building, and 100 million in investment, 150 in jobs, and they're going to use the rail. So this is it's a big deal coming to Central Delaware. We're pretty excited about it. And also thanks to Levy Court, this Project Cape was the 4M that you gave tax abatement to, and you also gave strategic fund. And without those incentives on the 2 large companies, we wouldn't have been able to lure them. So we thank you. We have 13 other projects in the queue. I think I talk about what their types. Some are manufacturing, some are healthcare, some recycling, some distribution, and some other. And we're excited. Since COVID, we have not missed a beat. The inquiries are still coming in, and we're still working diligently to secure more companies for Central Delaware. Just wanted to give you a quick update about the Civil Air Terminal. The market analysis was completed the end of 2019. It said that the best and highest use for that facility would be for a fixed base operation, which is like a charter. kind of operation. So that market analysis is finished. The environmental assessment is in the federal review and comment period right now. We're hoping that that'll be finished. Senator Carper has designated one of his staff members to see it through the federal process and to make sure it becomes to fruition. And we just had a briefing with the base commander, I want to say 2 weeks ago, to bring him up to speed with this. And the JUA, which actually gets signed with the Department of Defense, that's a joint use agreement, they're hoping will be signed first quarter 2021. But I've moved that date on the slide many times, so I'm just going to keep my fingers crossed on that one. But it's pretty good because we still have, we have a couple inquiries that have come in for this. If we could just get the JUA signed, we can pull the trigger and start really working on those leads. And also, we are involved in the master planning for Harrington. Harrington requested a USDA grant and a Kent County, a Dover-Kent MPO study to be done for their industrial area. This is where the CT film plant was. You'll see the industrial. There's 3 parcels plus a 4th parcel of land. And that lower portion of the picture is rail. Rail runs right along that. They have a really good section of railroad. So the Kent MPO is working on designing this for transportation, for freight distribution, large industrial park. You'll see this is just a draft layout of some large areas that would be there. Large buildings, and so hopefully I think it'll be done sometime this year, at least the draft planning. There's private landowners and they're all involved and they're all very, very supportive of this project with Harrington. And then Harrington's also supportive. They're gonna have to get some of their infrastructure in there that's needed to make it happen. So, but at least it's moving forward. It's at dormant for 15 years without anybody doing anything with it. And it's a great opportunity, especially with that rail. There's a proposal to put a rail depot in there, not passenger, but for cargo and things like that. So it would be like a transfer depot in the lower portion of that industrial park. And the railroad's very excited about that because we say one of the number one products that's supplied to our area is building supplies. And they would love to have a place that could come in from Baltimore to there and then truck to the lower portion into Sussex. So then also, our county administrator and the planning office and everybody, KEP and Commissioner Buxton, have been involved in the master planning of Little Heaven. I think these are the older slides. I don't think I have the new ones in here, but master planning with Little Heaven and Frederica, and they're moving along nicely. DelDOT's been involved lately. I think these are the original ones. I don't think I have the updated ones in here, but the point is the master planning is moving along, and hopefully, as the county administrator said this morning, hopefully we can get something finished by the end of the year. We also are still working on the transportation study, the east-west freight route transportation study. They're doing they're studying 3 routes out of Kent County, and they're running all the numbers, and hopefully soon they'll be going out for public comment on that one. We hosted a really good town managers, brokers meetings. We had all the commercial real estate brokers, a lot of them from all over the state, not just Kent County. And we had all the large landowners and large building owners, industrial owners involved in a meeting. And the purpose was, how can we as municipalities, as the county, how can we assist the brokers in marketing their buildings, their land? And it was just a really good dialogue, and we came up with some really good action plans that mostly center around our website, Choose Central Delaware, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. So the Kent County Small Business through the relief grant, Lori corrected me today, it's actually 54 grants were awarded that Levy Court did for the COVID relief grant. That was the grant for the small businesses up to 500. So just this last week, we've been filming virtual site tours, and we had our social media film crew out at the former Playtex site in Dover. That's the one that's right along the rail and right next to Edgewell. And then we also filmed the Maxim site, which is the former Reichhold site. And then we did Harris Manufacturing in Smyrna. And we'll be doing more of these. They will go on the website, they'll go on social media. And once they're finished, I'd be happy to show them to you. It takes you all inside the building, gives a cold tour of the area, highways. You can see how far you are. So we thought for some of our industrial areas, we needed to step up the game. And so we started filming these virtual site tours.
Excuse me,
And
Linda.
then we actually did,
Linda?
sorry.
Can you
Jody?
go back screen?
Sorry.
So what happens to those virtual site tour media when you're done?
It'll go on our YouTube channel, our website, wherever if you want to use it. We're not going to be proprietary about it because we want the word out. So,
Take them when you go to shows and such?
well, I'll talk about that a little bit because the shows are all virtual this year,
that's true.
and that's why nobody's traveling, and that's why we thought we needed to do some virtual things, to post on the web because that's how everybody's getting their information now, So,
Okay, thanks.
yeah, I mean, when we go to shows, it would go with us, but not going as of yet. Then the big thing was, and we've never had this, we actually have testimonials from Edgewell and from Kraft stating why manufacturing is great in Central Delaware and why it's such a good location to locate your manufacturing business. So we're really, really excited about those two testimonials that we got that we'll be using on the website and social media and everything too. So there's some good, they were just filmed last week, so we don't have the final cuts or anything yet. Also, because everything is virtual, early in 2021, we are bringing in a manufacturing site selector. That's someone that just specializes in manufacturing. And they are going to host coaching seminars with the municipalities, with our real estate brokers. They're going to tour the municipalities and all our industrial areas. So we're going to have this person for 3 days, intensive training for all of us and how we can position ourselves. This site selector does large manufacturing facilities across the world. So we're pretty excited to have her come in and visit with us in Central Delaware. We also, since everything's virtual and we're not going, in November and December, we have another site selector that specializes in food processing plants across the country and across the world. And he's hosting training seminars with our municipalities and also hosting a mock RFI. An RFI is a request for information. A company would send that out to municipality or organization like ours, and then we would have to send the proposal in with all the information. So he wants to position us so that we know exactly what to send in for the food and beverage processing sector, and then we'll get critiqued on those RFIs, and we will end up having some really good proposals that we can put together. And also this person that's what he specializes in, so we're hoping after this exercise he can start bringing some of those food processing deals to us because he'll be aware of us too. So we're excited about that. That's coming up. So for the next 4 months, we're going to be busy working with site selectors in different areas. The website just keeps it just keeps hitting home runs over and over and over again, and this is one of the most searched areas on the website. It's called Find a Site, and you can search anything. You can put in any kind of information. I want an industrial building, 5,000 square feet, blah, 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 in this area or whatever. It aggregates that and spits out a whole list of sites or properties for you to see. And then also, across the top, it tells you about building sites, businesses, but it gives you all the demographics. So you can say, I want the demographics for Smyrna. And it'll give you all the demographics for Smyrna, what the average wage is, how many workers are there, local layers. And they're just adding another layer to this. We'll get trained on it in the next couple weeks, where you can actually pull this information and it puts it into a proposal form. So this is Zoom Prospector that you just signed for the other day. So we're excited. This is, it's working, and we get calls from site selectors and inquiries off of this site on the website all the time. We also are doing Rockport 2.0, as I call it. It's going to be an in-depth analysis of our targeted industries, and it's also going to drill down further into Milford, Smyrna, and Dover and give them their targeted industries. Because some of their targeted industries, Milford's may be different than Smyrna's. And so each municipality is going to get their own detailed report, and then the county's going to get a report. And the one thing they're putting into this report is the workforce data that we've needed with this report. Also excited that we formed the Kent County Broadband Committee, and your representative is Commissioner Sweeney, has done a fabulous job being on that committee. There's two issues with broadband within our county, and it's affordability and accessibility. They're the drills down right to that. These are the reps on the broadband committee, and we're very happy that we have Jason Berry and Sarah Kiefer also from Kent County Planning on this committee. And when they did the comprehensive plan in 2018, they identified broadband as being an issue and also being an opportunity for economic development within Kent County. So we're hoping that we've heard from almost all the major providers. We kind of have a good idea of the landscape out there. And we have, I think, Maryland, we're looking at what they are doing and have done, because they actually, in their governor's office, have a cabinet level position of the Office of Rural Broadband. And they've had that for 10 years. So that's how important it is to them. And so our next speaker, I think, is from Maryland. Then hopefully after that, we can bring recommendations back to Kent County Levy Court and also maybe the state legislature, because Representative Spiegelman is on this committee also. So that's our goal, and we're working diligently to get there. And then I think that's that's kind of my update up till now. In your packet, there are 2 ordinance amendments that we have worked on, and I'm more than happy to go through the highlights if you want me to on the changes. However you want me to just keep rolling, Alan?
Yes, please.
Okay. All right, so on the first one, which is LC 2011, that's a strategic fund. Basically, we cleaned up a lot of language that is, that was pretty old, basically. It was just pretty old. So we cleaned up a lot of that, because it just had when the fund was started and how much money was put in there, so we basically cleaned that up. We didn't do a whole lot to what the fund could be used for, and we did change the review process because it was going before a organization, the Central Delaware Economic Development Organization, which isn't in existence now. So we really made the review process, it's still, Levy Court has all the authority and power to do whatever they want with this strategic fund. Levy Court commissioners can propose things to strategic fund companies, and they can request allocations. The economic partnership can request allocations from the strategic fund, but that all has to go through the administrative committee and be approved by Levy Court. And then the other thing we did was, that was basically it, I think, on the strategic fund. It was just cleaning up the language, giving Levy Court pretty much the ultimate approval, and that Kent Economic Partnership can make recommendations for that. On the second one, LC 2012, that was the tax abatement one, and we did do a couple of major changes, I would say, in this, because this is also very dated, and one of the things was changing the minimum investment that a company had to make from $500,000 to $1 million, and changing the amount of employees from 4 to 10. And since this hadn't been changed in a long time, we thought that that was a reasonable amount, and that the average salary needed to be at $40,000 a year to qualify for the tax abatement. We also added some industries and aligned them with the targeted industries in the Rockport study. And we gave also any industry or activity that Levy Court decides that they would like to consider and approve for the tax abatement, they have the ability to do that. And Levy Court can request the KEP to take a look at it and recommend, but it's not necessary. And I think that's all the changes, and I'm happy, unless Mike Pettit-Tomas sees something I missed in there, happy to answer any questions.
Linda, by
Yes.
going through and changing a lot of the wordage in here, did that also add like a little bit of a fast track to get to us quicker? From when you from the old system to the new, what you're proposing now?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think that, what we've done recently has, I think, been pretty fast tracked, and I think that using that in this works. Like going through the administrative committee and getting your approval in Levy Court, I'm fine.
Any questions?
And not necessarily questions. I clarified a couple things earlier. This is just a cleanup or a recommendation to improve, and so I enjoy that. It keeps Levy Court in a position of decision-making authority, so those are effective. So I'm good with the changes, short of anybody bringing something else up that I don't know about. I really wanted to go back to the original presentation, and thank you for coming here. And discussing a little bit and presenting to us and to anyone out there and whoever may or may not be listening, just to take a look, because it is quite impressive. My friend Commissioner Hall pointed out in a letter to the editor that I didn't take offense to. If I see something like that, it's a concern. I want to look at it. I want to see, is he pointing something out that has traction, that makes sense? Because if it's there, I need to consider looking at it. For example, the comprehensive plan collecting dust, or the master plan stalling, or economic development opportunities flatlining so that folks are leaving the county. And I would suggest that this is a pretty good example of, in fact, that not being the case. And I think it's a compliment to your work. When we look at some of the examples that you presented, I can assure you that's a dramatic improvement, change, however you want to call it, especially in a time of great difficulties. So I'm just talking a little bit, and I'll be done here in a second. And because the comp plan, of course, is a guide, certainly you utilize, but it doesn't restrict your hands or require you to work inside of it per se, even though you do. But you can still do your job effectively and bring jobs like you do. And the master plan did stall, but it was because of a state agency. And in fairness to the state agency, they were dealing with COVID. So it kind of tied our hands. It is what it is. So I do think that you correctly pointed out that we'll have that plan here relatively soon, hopefully real soon, to get us going. So no question, really. It was presented some pretty impressive comments, stats, whatever, and I didn't want to at least not make a comment about it in a positive way. So thank you. Kudos.
Anybody else? Yep. Well, Linda, I'm just going to bring the one thing up we discussed yesterday, and this is mainly for major corporations with buco bucks that can come in, right? And as my concern was, I know the SBA, the Small Business Administration, can help smaller businesses, but you got the small to medium companies to 250 to 500,000 plus that don't qualify under this. That I'd like to see us tweak it for economic development to help those people. Not being done right now. Just want to get it on record, so I'm bringing it forth. Make sure we get businesses in that era to look at that can be offered some of these things.
And we do. I mean, if you look at our business retention and expansion program, we hit those types of businesses almost all the time. We're dealing with a company right now that wants to, expand. Their total expenditure is going to be $500,000. So they are being helped, and there are programs out there through the Division of Small Business since they've reorganized and split into the Prosperity Partnership and the Division of Small Business. They've done an excellent job with really taking care of small businesses within Delaware. So they have relief programs, they have SSBCI grants. There's a lot of opportunity for small businesses to get help at the state level. What I said to you is I don't think we need to duplicate that when there's already programs in place like the SBA and everything that are already helping those businesses. We will assist them. We will guide them into how to get to those programs. But I don't think the county needs to be in that business when the state's already doing a great job with it.
I thank you for that answer because, like I said, I want to get this on the record too because a lot of people don't know that we can do that also. But
right.
At the same time, we want Levy Court to make sure that
right.
We're doing the best we can to help promote and get economic development started and do what the business leaders need to have done in our county. So I just wanted to
right.
make sure that we had a complete understanding there.
Got it.
Thank you.
So these
Fantastic.
need to move to next week, right? Okay. The ordinances.
Yes. Okay. LC 2011. Gentlemen, any questions on that? Seeing none. LC 2012. Any questions on that? Okay, can we have a motion for all, or excuse me, our hands go up for all three, please? Thank you. 7 up, 6 up.
So Commissioner Angel, what
Yes.
will happen is those two will be put on next week's agenda for introduction
Correct.
and then teed up for hearing in November.
Thank you, Ms. Permaz.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Parkowski.
everybody.
Any public comments on these 3 items?
If we have any callers on the line who wish to comment, please press *1 on your phones and we can recognize you. We see no callers. I'm not sure if anyone in the audience has anything.
Thank you, Mr. President. Back to you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Angel. Community Services, Mr. Sweeney.
Thank you, Mr. President. I believe Ms. Crouch is ready to go. Welcome back, Kim. We've seen a lot of you this month.
Good evening, Commissioners. Tonight I'm here to talk to you about Windstream renewal. Windstream provides communication to the county's data, for the county's data, internet, local and long-distance phone calls. The county signed a 5-year agreement in 2015, and now this service is due to be renewed. In your packet, you receive quotes from Windstream, Verizon, Crown Castle. All quotes are for 36 months. 36 months gives us 3 years. That provides the vendor the ability to give us discounts and yet it's short enough that we can reevaluate newer technology and future cost savings in 3 years versus 5 years. These quotes show an increase in speed for 4 locations. The wastewater treatment plant, the rec center, the library all are increasing from 10 meg to 50 meg. This building, Kent County Complex, will increase from 50 meg to 100, and for the record, public safety will remain at 100. Windstream is the recommended vendor, and they offer the lowest cost, monthly cost of $5,495.71. The funding source for this Windstream renewal will continue to be the sewer fund and general fund operating budget. Any questions?
Any questions for Ms. Crouch? Seeing none, move this forward to consent agenda next week. 6 hands. Thanks, Kim.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Any questions from the audience? Mr. Petitmonge?
Again, if anyone online wishes to speak, press *1 and we'll bring you in. We're seeing none.
Thanks, sir. Back to you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Sweeney. Under Public Works, Mr. Howell.
Thank you, Mr. President. I don't see either one of our Public Works people here, so I guess I'll just handle this. It's
Ms. Gold is going to join us on the phone. So is she on the line, Mark? Ms. Gold is joining us remotely.
Okay. I'll take him out.
Diana, if you're there and you want to speak on the first item, the floor is yours.
Diana?
I'm sorry, I forgot to take the mute off. This is Diana Gold, and good evening, Commissioners. So I'm hoping you all can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
So before you tonight is a purchase of a work truck. We are looking to purchase a truck in the amount of $32,699. We have that price offered to us again because we just bought a truck in April. The truck that we're looking to replace was damaged in an accident, and insurance funds were received of a little over $20,500, and the remaining funds would come from sales funds and unrestricted reserves, and it would allow us to keep all our inspectors moving on the road. I don't know if you all have any questions for me.
Very good. Any questions or comments? All right, so this is not an addition to the fleet, it's replacement, all right? And if everybody's in agreement, we'll put it on the consent agenda. Everybody in favor? 6 up. Any questions from the audience? Or on the telephone?
I believe Diana's the only caller we have right now, so we have no other callers on the line.
All right, I guess that settles it. Back to you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Howell. Public Safety Committee is next. Mr. Angel.
Thank you, Mr. President. Chief, as you're coming forth, we knew we're getting old when we remember when we put these in place. This is 15 years old.
Yes, yes, absolutely. It's time. Before I get started, I'd like to introduce Richard Morris, who is here from Motorola Solutions. He comes to us tonight from Salisbury. And one of our current capital projects in the Department of Public Safety and the DivCom division is to replace the aging simulcast fire and EMS paging system. And this is a sole, so we've identified the Motorola as a sole source because of their integration with their 800 megahertz radio system. And I'm going to let Kevin Sipple, the Assistant Director of Public Safety for DivCom, step up and speak to the finer points to this. And if they get too fine, we have Richard Morris, who will be able to also answer questions. So, Kevin?
Good evening, Commissioners. As Colin mentioned, we're in front of you tonight to replace our simulcast paging system provided by Motorola Solutions. Back in March of 2018, we received a letter from Motorola telling us that our system that we're currently using in Kent County, that the equipment is aging, simulcast system and the paging equipment. So over the last year and a half, we've been working with Motorola to come up with a proposal for replacement. This would be a sole source due to the integration of the Motorola 800 megahertz system provided by the state of Delaware. Currently, our system is 15 years old. Several components are at the end of life, and replacement components and services will not be able to be guaranteed or supported by Motorola. Originally, when we started negotiations with Motorola, the price of this project was a little over $1 million. Working with Motorola and State Communications, we were able to reduce the price down to $661,401. What we're doing is replacing the infrastructure, all of the simulcast paging equipment, but we are not replacing the transmission lines and the antennas at all 8 sites. What Motorola is going to do is they're going to sweep those lines. If for some reason they find a problem with the antennas or the transmission lines, we'll contract with State Communications to do the work. Budgetary price is about $5,000 to replace the antennas and cabling. Over the years, we pay a maintenance contract to State Communications. They feel pretty confident that we will not have to do that. With that being said, this is integrated into a partnership between Motorola and the state of Delaware that's working on the 800 megahertz technology refresh project. There's a lot of work going on within our building. This is integrated into our paging system. One thing that I want you to take away is that the fire and EMS community have an investment in this also, where they buy Monitor pagers for all of their fire staff, EMS staff, paramedics. Those pagers that they've put money out to will still continue to work on this system. So there really, at the end of the day, there will be no change on their end as far as buying additional equipment. Another thing that we are working on, there is a possible cost savings measures. The State 911 Board approved in November 21st of 2019 to reimburse up to 30% of the cost of a paging system not to exceed $400,000. Currently, myself and Colin are working with the board for approval for these reimbursements over the next year. Any questions for me or for Richard Morris, which is our technical advisor here tonight for the paging system?
President Bannon and Commissioner Sweeney.
Yeah, Kevin, just one question. Is there a salvage value of any small amount that might be brought from the sale of or utilization of what the parts that we're replacing? I mean, I know it's 15 years, but are some of them still operative, and can they be?
It's operational now. The issue is that Motorola no longer makes these components, so the resale value, without the guarantee of Motorola servicing the equipment, it's really not much of a resale value.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Commissioner Angel. Kevin, thanks for being here. I'm a huge proponent and advocate for Pulse Point. Is this system also the same one that also sends out the messages to Pulse Point?
Our computer-aided dispatch system actually does that.
Okay.
This is what I tell everyone. This is our official alerting device for the public safety community in Kent County. Pulse Point, third-party vendor. Text messaging to the providers, third party. This is the only thing that we have complete control over. I will say that text messaging does a great job of notifying people. It doesn't wake them up in the middle of the night. Sometimes there's delays. We've had issues over the last couple weeks with a couple of the cell carriers. This is our component that we own, we control. What it does, it sends a tone out, and it sends a voice announcement out to all the responders that there's a call in their area.
Okay. I'm finding Pulse Point to be very useful because sometimes I'll get the message on that before I hear the fire whistle go off, and that's just amazing.
Yes.
But you guys are doing a great job. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions, gentlemen? Move it forward to the business meeting. Consent? 6 up.
Is that consent agenda?
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.
Consent agenda?
Consent, yes. Any public comments on this item? Any public comments? Mark, anybody online? Seeing nobody, back to you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Angel. Under Planning Services, Mr. Buxton.
We'll be coming down here in a second momentarily. Before she gets started, question related to the Public Works one. It's just a general one. It can kind of relate to this. I don't know how long ago. We did have a conversation, and Mr. Pettit-Damage maybe recall, was there any implementation of when a vehicle is brought forth for purchase, that there's a requirement to look at an eco-friendly vehicle? I know we had that conversation. I know we wasted a lot of time talking about it, but the concern I have is that's all we did, and then it doesn't go anywhere, which is fine if it was talked about more than just at our table. So what do you think, Mr. Pettit-Damage?
Yes, well, several years ago, when Levy Court adopted a green purchasing policy, you incorporated that into, to be looked at when we're purchasing vehicles. And I can't say that we've been fastidious in following that policy. I can tell you, though, that just about 2 weeks ago now, we had a staff level meeting. Various departments were represented. Chief Faulkner, Sarah, Public Works, and the issue of looking at alternative fuel vehicles was the topic. And so, and it was really prompted by Public Safety Department. They're, every year they're purchasing paramedic vehicles and other staff vehicles. And so I've asked them this year, they're going to be bringing forward proposals like they do every year, but they will have an alternative for either compressed natural gas or other, options so that we can see the range of possibilities. And, that will hopefully set a template for all the other departments to follow, and they bring forward a proposal for a vehicle.
It certainly does. It helps quite a bit. I mean, again, we had this conversation. It's unusual. I don't know why it would be unusual for one side or the other to bring this topic up consistently, but I think that the county, Levy Court, with its small amount of fleet, can provide an example. There's no debate on whether or not you can utilize an eco-friendly car. That's not ridiculous to say. Doesn't mean I want to get rid of fossil fuel. You know what I mean? But I just think that we need to do a better job. I'm glad to hear that, and I think that as a Levy Court, we should be really pushing that. And I know that we've approved several vehicles since that conversation. I know that we approved that language, but then the conversation we had down there was about not utilizing the language, and then we're here XYZ later and still not doing it, although I'm glad to hear we may be. So leadership probably needs to say this is what we're doing. What do you think, Brooks? All right. Sorry about that, Ms. Kiefer. Fired up.
Thank you, Commissioners. What's before you tonight is the RFP we put out for plan review and building inspection services. As the Commissioners know, we've experienced much higher demand for building permits in the last 6 or 8 months, so existing staff hasn't been able to keep up. We've had a temporary contract with Code Solutions for the last several months to give us time to go through the RFP process. We got 2 responses to the RFP. One was Code Solutions, the other was First State Inspection Agency. Both are roughly equivalent. Based on the staff's assessment, Code Solutions came out a little bit higher on points, mostly due to the level of credentials that their staff have. But it's also important to note that First State came in terms of the hourly fee, just under. Code Solutions proposed an hourly fee of $95, whereas First State Inspections proposed an hourly fee of $90. So again, Code Solutions comes out a little bit higher in points. Hourly rate is slightly lower with First State. So we're hoping for some guidance from Levy Court as to which group you'd rather go with for a more long-term contract. And I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
So, Ms. Kiefer.
Yes.
I want to, well, I'll tell you what, I have some questions, but are you saying you have some questions, Commissioner Sweeney?
Yes, sir.
I'll be happy to offer it up to you first.
Thanks, Commissioner Buxton. So, Ms. Kiefer, you said this is a long-term contract?
Longer. My thought would be we'd start with a year, because this is something new for the department to do. What we've been operating under is an emergency contract, effectively.
So how will that work when MyGov is completely implemented, which hopefully will be shortly? Will they be able to access that system
Outside agencies actually can access the system.
and provide the same level of service that our inside inspectors and plan reviewers do
What we can create are user accounts for other agencies.
from outside? Excellent. It's good to know. Thank you.
Welcome.
Any other commissioners? Commissioner Angel?
Yeah, thank you. Kiefer, are both of these local companies?
They're both Delaware companies.
I'm sorry?
They're both Delaware companies.
Okay. I know $5 doesn't seem like a lot difference, but we always usually go with the lowest bid based on, and since there was no negatives on either one, I see one was picked over the other for $5 more per hour. I'm more inclined to see the $90 come in to save taxpayer dollars, so just want to put that out there.
Thank you.
Yep. And I appreciate your time, and I didn't get a chance to speak to you today about it, although I'm very familiar with this situation as far as the implementation of this new plan. I'm excited about it. I think it is going to be a direct benefit to the constituents of the county. As you're aware, gentlemen, we're behind. Regardless of the reasons, we're behind, and this is a definitive step in addressing that, to get us caught back up, and then to deal with those times when we have an influx, an exaggerated amount of plans or permits or whatever, for whatever reason, to come in. This is not something that's new. It's new to the county, but it's used routinely in other jurisdictions. So again, I repeat that this is a big deal and a good deal. And so certainly I support it. I've been supporting it for a while. I don't like to use the I word or I letter at all, but the fact of the matter is, yes, this is something that I like to see happen. But let's talk about the bid, Ms. Kiefer. And I assume you don't have any skin in the game, so you're receptive to this conversation. Commissioner Angel, you said guidance. So the guidance that I want is that I want the best applicant that can immediately address the concerns and then long-term effectively address the concerns. That's the one I want. No guarantees I know which one that is right now, but we can take a look, reviewing a couple of these things. The question of the ability for either company to do the work, there's no concern there from you or the staff that either company could step right in?
Either company appears to have the capacity to step right in.
Both do?
Both do.
Without hiring anybody or bringing more people on staff after this bid's...
I can't swear to it. My understanding, what I hear is that both companies are working to staff up, because we are not the only jurisdiction in this position.
Both companies, there's no obvious understanding that either one couldn't step in and do the job, do it well. In fact, I assume both of them have looked at the websites. They both appear to be doing the exact same work that's
Yes.
on the RFP in other jurisdictions.
Yes.
Right. Okay. So the question then becomes, because I know, I'm just going to assume, if both of them are equally as qualified and are actively working, were there negative references?
There were no negative references. We called 3 of each out of the 5 they had to provide. Nothing was negative. I can say the references for Code Solutions were unexpectedly enthusiastic, but none was negative.
The $5 an hour over a year's contract could be significant.
It isn't nothing, that's for certain.
It can be impactful for a program that I'd like to see us possibly re-up. Commissioner Sweeney?
Thanks, sir. So, Sarah, in your notes, you mentioned that Code Solution exceeded the certification for ICC and First State did not.
Correct.
So ICC is important to us only because we just passed new ICC code. Is that, why was that not included in the criteria for the RFP?
It actually is.
Just see
Qualifications of assigned personnel.
Okay, so that's what makes the big difference between those 2 point scores.
That's a substantial difference, yes.
Okay.
For Code Solutions, the primary staff are all master building officials.
And what's the requirement to get that certification?
It's to get to, I mean, that exceeds what we asked for in the RFP, right? We asked for in the RFP exactly what our staff are qualified as. So it's effectively taking, to get to the level of master, I believe you have to take virtually every exam that ICC offers.
And there's a cost factor for taking those
Substantial.
exams.
Substantial.
So it sounds like Code Solutions did that and First State Inspections did not.
It was not apparent in their proposal. They have one master code professional, but they've lapsed. It's not active.
So do we have still any vacancies in our inspection staff?
We do have one vacancy that we've got out, and it is open until filled.
Open until filled?
Mm-hmm.
So we find a suitable candidate, should be able to fill it?
As
Which
soon
will
as we
help.
can find a suitable candidate, we will fill it, and it will help.
Okay, thank you.
So, certifications, they were over and above what you had asked for? Or you
Code
had asked?
Solutions is, yes.
So, if I get this right then, right? First State had all of the certifications that you asked for in the RFP. They
That
weren't
was not
def-
apparent in the RFP. The assurance in the RFP was that staff would have our required qualifications within 60 days of the contract.
I guess I missed out on what you just said. I guess what I'm asking for is that the Code Solutions had the necessary qualifications where they did not.
Code Solutions exceeds our necessary qualifications.
Right. So let me get back to what I said then. First State Inspections met.
No,
They were deficient.
they do not have.
I didn't say exceeds. Did they
No, they
meet?
did. It was not apparent in their proposal that their staff have the minimum qualifications. The assurance in the proposal is that their staff would have them within 60 days of an agreement.
Let me ask one last question, and I'll be finished. All right. In preparing the RFP and then posting it, it's a question that I don't have an answer to, so you might have an easy one. I know you all have an easy one. The RFP goes out where? Where does it get advertised? Where was this one advertised?
State News.
So the State News
Twice.
received it a couple times. Where was it posted on the county? Is it traditionally in their specific section for RFP, wherever?
That's not a page we actually have access to. We posted it on the INE page.
So you posted on the INE page. Is it supposed to be typically posted in a separate location where a vendor would go to look?
Based on the policy, it is required to be posted in a newspaper twice. That's what we did.
Based on our precedent, do we traditionally put it on the INE page and not post it in the RFP section?
This is the first RFP we've put out.
All right, so I'm going to express, I've already expressed a concern. I'm going to question why we're not using the lower bidder. I had concerns about the way it was produced because there are more than just two folks in the county or in the state that are in this section of business, yet only two were presented and one was rushed. That's all. That's a concern. If it moves forward under the current recommendation, I won't stop it, nor than I think I can, but I won't vote for it. So there is where we are currently with me. Commissioner Angel.
Thank you, Commissioner Buckman. Ms. Kiefer, both these companies are equal to the same staff we have now and their knowledge for what they have to do to get the job done?
I can speak to their credentials. Certainly, First State has been in business for quite some time and worked for any number of jurisdictions. I presume they are capable of getting the job done.
Okay, and the reason I'm asking is I know we've had people employed that didn't get their certification, were still doing their jobs, and they were doing it very well for the county. That's why I was asking that question. Are both these companies able to jump in and do the same thing that our staff's doing now?
All indications are yes.
Okay, thank you.
It's even greater than that. Both of them are actively doing so in other jurisdictions. Middletown being an example, the one with First State. It's kind of where I first heard the idea. So that doesn't put them in an advantaged position over the other. It just doesn't. Look, I make no bones about it. I'm the 4th District Commissioner. I represent the constituents in that district, including businesses. Clearly, this organization is within that district. I represent the county in a fiduciary way, the taxpayers, right? So I also want the best bang for the buck. Gentlemen, you all have the same role to play. I'm not here to steamroll this. I'm just not. But I am going to advocate for something that I think makes sense. That's all. So that's where we are. I think we've taken enough time. So the point I guess that I'll make is this. Well, as I said before, we've got competing recommendations now. I'm going to recommend that we move forward with the lower bidder. If you don't agree, that's perfectly fine, but there is an exceptional importance to moving forward. All right? So I'm going to move forward with this one. If it does not receive the votes, then I would suggest the commissioner at large, representing Commissioner Angel, offers a secondary movement. Does that make sense? Is that a procedural? Yes. Can we do that? All right. Well, then we're going to see what happens first. So I'm going to make a motion.
Mr. Buxton, before
Sir.
you do that,
Yes, sir.
if memory serves me, within the last 60 days, we had a similar situation, and the recommendation that was put in front of us at that time we didn't accept, and we actually moved to the low bidder. So I think that the recommendation that you're about to make is for the low bidder, and I certainly would support that. Thank you.
The qualified low bidder, not just a low bidder. You know, I respect what you just said, yes. So a show of hands to move forward under the proposal utilizing First State Inspections Agency.
We'll move forward with that. Thank you. And I want to be clear, staff wasn't making a recommendation. We came just with guidance, or asking for guidance.
I don't want anyone to think anything differently.
Okay.
I never pretend to have a statement that this is easy, right? I'm sitting up here and, anyway, fair enough. Commissioner, or Mr. Pettit,
We'll move forward.
Mr. Chairman, before we leave this topic, I was also going to ask about a budget, because currently this is not a budgeted item. So what we've been doing, we spent up to the limit at the staff level, moving money from unexpended monies in the budget to cover what we've spent using contractual services. But moving forward, I would recommend that next week or whenever we do make the motion approving this of a vendor, we also establish a budget of a certain amount of money, and I would suggest that we use unrestricted fund balance and perhaps set aside $25,000 to $30,000 or something along that line as an initial allocation.
I would ask the question because there's been a lot of moving parts over the last couple of months in getting to this position. I thought my intention, unless we missed that, was that there is an existing position that has remained unfilled for numerous years. And the suggestion that I thought that I was making and hoping that was accepted was that we would essentially trade dollars, that this would become that position at a minimum for a year. If not longer, we can review it at the end of a year. So to say that I want, or that I would suggest that we make a funding recommendation equal to that, I would suggest at a minimum that it is moderately close to that, because we don't want to underutilize this position. I don't want to constrict it to a too small of a number, because we have an existing bubble that we're trying to get down, right? We're still chopping wood to get that number down, correct?
Yeah, it fluctuates depending on demand. We've been
Right.
under 2 weeks for a certain amount of time, and then if we get a huge push, then we get back to 3 or 4 weeks.
So the answer would be a recommendation as to the number that we could present, utilize, that would fairly pay for it, but not skinny it so much that we're back here trying to move the number up. And the reason I can say that is because, again, if we have monies funded, technically it's not going to come out off of there, but it is semi-paid for because we're not filling that position. There's no plan to fill that position at this time. If there is, correct me.
That position's been posted.
Huh?
That position has been posted.
That's the position that Sarah referenced is open until filled, so.
So I would suggest that this answers the need for that if this is in fact a new position. If we want to have that conversation individually as the chairman of that department and save some time tonight, I can certainly offer that. Or we can have, this is a good discussion, we can have it now. But I was looking for a way to pay for it. We had 2 openings, hired 1, correct?
We had 2 openings. One was a building inspector, and we filled that in the summer. And then there was the vacant, what ultimately could be a building inspector 3, we've advertised as a building inspector 1.
Comments, again, this might be holding us up longer than we need to. And it's not, I don't own the place. So I can speak as if I was making a decision, I'm offering up an option, right? And then it'll certainly talk me off the shelf or outvote me. But if I was king, that position would remain open. And we would effectively utilize this contract to fill that position. It's been open for over 2 years, right?
It hadn't been advertised, to be fair. It was
has
funded.
been, doesn't matter. It has been open for over 2 years. And I am not asking the county to go without at all. In fact, that's why we're here tonight, to assist the county and the staff with addressing those times when we are, there's times when we're a lot busier than other times, where we get behind. I've listened to the employees. It's not their fault. You can't control when you get 10 plans dropped off versus 1. So here's how you control it. So what I'm looking to do is to maintain that spot as open and utilize that to deal with it. Now, anyway, I'm starting to ramble. Is this sinking in at all? Or should we go ahead and hire, and then I would assume underutilize this? Again, Commissioner Hall, yeah, jump in, because again, I'm not pretending to say I know everything. Sir.
Thanks, Commissioner Buxton. How long has it been since we advertised the position?
We advertised that position, heavens, we just did interviews a couple of weeks ago. So we would have advertised in early September, I think. We got a handful of candidates who were not qualified for the position. And so I talked to Mike and we re-advertised it, leaving it open until filled.
Thank you. So it's been open for 2 years, but we only just advertised for it 30 days ago. So the contract would be a stopgap measure because we're shorthanded, And the position would help resolve us being shorthanded.
Yes.
So that would be a long-term strategy to keep that position and try to get it filled with a qualified person so that we wouldn't need to continue with stopgap measures. Because in my view, it's more valuable to have someone long-term on staff who knows the county, knows the code, knows the business processes, rather than the deficits that come with bringing someone in and getting them up to speed and having them, really do what we need done. So I'm okay with finding additional funds to cover the stopgap measure and still advertise and interview for the long-term good. So that's my opinion.
Commissioner Sweeney.
Thanks, Commissioner Buxton. So, Sarah, do you have an idea of how many applications, permits they're going to review, or how many building inspections they plan to do at $90 an hour? If they're replacing a single person, is this going to be 8 hours a day, 5 days a week for 280 days a year? I mean, we're looking at $180,000 in cost, or something considerably less.
I have to do a lot more math to give a really good answer on that one.
Oh, well, $2,000 or $2,000 at $90 an hour, you've roughly 2,000 hours in a work year, so 1980 or something like that.
And so far, in the months that we've been working with Code Solutions, we've spent just under $25,000 as of this week. We've maxed out that contract.
So theoretically, we could put, and whatever number you guys come up with, we could put $100,000 in this, and then $20,000 down the road, we could be all caught up, and we don't need to use them anymore. We can use internal staff to keep going.
And it's intended to be indeed a stopgap. It's intended to be intermittent. Even there have even been times in the last 6 or 8 months where our staff has been able to manage what's come in, but then we'll get an influx,
Right.
and there's no way to keep up, and then we use Code Solutions.
Are there types of permits that we would kind of float their way? I mean, will we give them a new big box store permit as opposed to, Joe Smith's back deck?
Sure. Yes. The trend has been, we're inundated with new housing starts.
Right.
As well as some additions, decks, sheds, that kind of thing. We tend to, when we get an influx of new houses, we'll shift a percentage of those over to Code Solutions. And then we've had a couple of commercial plans come in. Most recently, the hotel that's proposed in Frederica came in. And that takes, a substantial amount of time. So we shifted that over to Code Solutions because they could get it done faster than we could. So that's generally how we've been working it.
So that's something that, like you said, there's a substantial amount of math that comes along with this and figuring out how much
To
we
give you the
would-
number, yeah.
in order to get caught up and to stay caught up if we ever see an influx of permits again that our internal staff can't handle.
Since spring, it became pretty apparent to us there was a huge demand for real estate in Kent County.
Right.
So it has not, there's still a huge demand. There are days where 50 new houses will come in a day, right? And that there's no way to keep up. That's when we have to farm work out.
Okay, thanks.
Sure.
Commissioner Hall.
Thanks, Commissioner Buxton. Be really quick. Only because I think this is a good time to bring this up. Not long ago, I asked Mr. Coela for the last workforce analysis that have been done here in the county. And he produced one, and it had been done for the planning office, and it was 20 years old. And so we do pay and compensation studies, which look at, the existing workforce, and for the positions that they do, how much should they be paid. But those studies don't look at the amount of work that needs to be done versus how many resources do we have on staff. to match the workload. And so I'm just going to suggest that there's value in having those studies done as well to give us an idea. Do we have the right number of people to meet the workload that they are trying to address? And that should be a separate study from how much are the staff being paid to do these jobs. So just throwing it out there, not for action, but just for thought. Thanks.
Sure, Commissioner Angel.
Commissioner Hall, that pay study will be coming forth to us in the near future here, so I think that'd be most appropriate time between now and then to have that discussion with Mr. Coelho, and maybe we can have that discussion also when it comes before us. Thank you.
I like relying as best we can on the folks that run the departments and their second and thirds in the command to give us good advice on those types of issues, and then support it when we can. Getting back to where we are, because we're starting to drag this, but this is important. Every one of you up here, one of your biggest interactions you have with the county is land use, whether it's putting a shed in or something, a pool or a large house or commercial or whatever. And so this, I think, is a very positive step, but let's get it right. I also believe in paying for it. So I want to take the budget and pay for it rather than add to the budget, which is essentially what we'd be doing without finding a way to fund it. So I don't even know the procedure if this is even worthy of a conversation, because at the end of the day, I don't even know if we can give a directive. But I can have the conversation, which is, and I'm almost done. I think we've got a position. It's sitting there fully funded, that has been fully funded for a long time. Right? It has. It can remain open because we're essentially, in my vision, funding it. We're filling that position with this contract tonight. Now, the beauty of this contract is we can tamp out the bubble, and then we can cut them loose when we're operating fine. I've seen a lot of numbers over the years about the busyness of the department and whatnot, and it runs and flows. It sure does. So that's the beauty of it. We don't have to strap ourselves down. Eventually, we would have to make that decision, right? Because you're still funding the position. You're just not spending it, right? It rolls over into the next budget if it stays open. So the thought that I have, and then if there's no support of it, let's get away from it, is, again, leave the position open, utilize this program for a year to address the concerns, rely on the director to map out the most effective plan utilizing the intel of her employees. What are they going to utilize most often? Commercial projects. When we have a 10-to-1, anytime it goes above 7, they get the call. Inspections that fall greater than 3 days outside, they're getting a call. Whatever it might be. I'm just spitballing. So that's what I would like to see with this program. We have a year to do it. That I understand that it's been open, but it's been open for a while due to a language in there that prohibited some from applying because of a certification. That's why it dropped down to a 1. So that would be my ask. I'm going to talk to Commissioner Sweeney, then I'm going to ask Mr. Pettit-DeMasi if we're just talking about something that's not relevant. But first, let's hear Commissioner Sweeney, and then I'm going to stop.
Thanks,
Yes.
Commissioner Buxton. So, Commissioner Hall, I want to be clear. You are in favor of filling the position and having a permanent employee? Yep, so am I, but I would ask a question of Ms. Kiefer. So the inspections 3, you had multiple candidates for that, correct? That met the requirements of the job as it was posted that you interviewed?
When it was a 3 or when we advertised as a 1?
When it was a 3?
No.
How many did you have qualify?
None.
You had none?
None for a 3.
So then you reclassified to 1. Did you interview people for the 1?
We did.
And nobody qualified even as a 1?
No one had the experience
Which is
necessary.
Not even a journeyman or a tradesman. I mean, that's basically
They
know how to
truly
hammer a nail.
were not. They didn't have experience in carpentry at all that we could benefit from. It is a tough job market when the real estate market is this hot. It is very difficult to hire inspectors.
Okay. Thanks.
If I could, just in the interim, we interviewed for the 3, or we advertised for the 3 more than a year ago, year and a half ago, maybe more. And then our plan, because it's so hard to find somebody with all the credentials, our plan was to promote from within. And if we had stayed at the same rate of permits that we were at 18 months ago, we probably could have managed that and then just backfilled. And then the spring happened, and we just can't. We can't wait.
We'll talk afterwards.
Sure.
Yes, Commissioner Angel, and then Mr. Pettit-Dimash.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Buxton. In fact, the question is for Mr. Pettit-Dimash. We have an ordinance that if a position is not fulfilled within a certain time, it goes away. Since this is an actually needed position, is this going to go away if it doesn't get filled, or is it a critical need that we need to look at our ordinance and have something changed in that?
Any position that the ordinance you're referring to talks about a 2-year situation. In the budget, we determine whether or not a position is no longer needed, and we will note it in the budget that it's being eliminated, and that becomes part of that budget ordinance, so that there's no ambiguity there. There have been positions that we have chosen just not to close, but not to budget for, and just keep the position because, you know, there may be a period of time before we realize it truly isn't needed any longer. Hope that answers that question.
Thank you, sir. I just want to get on record.
And while I have the floor, reason I brought up the question about a budget is, you know, we're on the verge of awarding a contract, and obviously it's not for a set fee, but it's going to be on a as you go per call basis, billable. We should identify the funding source, and so if it's going to be from existing budgeted personnel line, we need to know that, because I think that immediately affects that current decision to run an ad for a position. We will take that ad offline, and we will redirect that money into a contractual line through a budget amendment that we can do at the staff level. But short of that, if we want to take the other tack and say we're going to fill that position and continue to pursue it, we're going to keep that budget intact. We're going to need other money to come into the budget from unrestricted reserves to establish a budget to pay the contractor. You know, so right now we don't have enough money in the contractual line in the budget to pay for much more of this service until we get an infusion. So it's really a choice. I think Commissioner Buxton's right. If we want to, you know, basically agree we're going to not fill that position, and we're going to use the money that was budgeted for that salary and benefits towards the contractual services, we can do that. But that is something everyone needs to understand the same thing. So it's an important discussion here to have. And if this arrangement continues into the FY21, obviously we'll set a budget line up for contractual services to cover an adequate amount of hours that we could purchase moving forward into that year, into the 22 budget cycle, I should say. Thank you.
I want to try and formulate a decision based on mine, and then someone can trump that. That's what they decide to do. The plan that I offer up, it addresses a need, right? And it pays for itself, right? The alternative, you're not wrong, but it addresses a need, but it doesn't pay for itself. This problem that we're experiencing, is a good problem to have, but it's a recent problem to have. It's a good problem to have. It wasn't early on during the COVID when we got behind because of COVID like everyone else, but now we're getting behind because it's a hot market. That could change. That could change. The plan that I'm following allows us to adapt to that change, pull back, save some money. When you add a permanent employee, you can do that. through the good and bad times, the employee stays here, right? So when and then lastly, over 2 years, it's been open. We haven't been woefully behind for over 2 years. In fact, we've been operating rather favorably. At times, not because of the bubble. So I'm off the fence. I say this all the time, and you guys have been with me long enough to know there's no guarantee. I used to coach wrestling. I'd always say 30 seconds, and at 29 seconds, I'd say 60 more seconds. And that's kind of what you guys are thinking right now. But that's my ask. That's my offer, to give a directive to exactly that. Twofold. Pull the application period, right? If you want to leave the funding there for a year to see how this program works, that's fine, because I don't know how pulling the funding changes that position. Does it change it?
Well, it doesn't eliminate the position, but
Okay.
it takes the money out of
Right.
the
So it
budget
doesn't
line.
harm the position next year if we decide to go back to it, right? So that would be my ask. That's what I would suggest we do. Pull the online application, whatever we can call it. Utilize the funding to pay for this new program. Set a bar that it can max out in. Evaluate in a year. Commissioner Sweeney and then Commissioner Hall.
Thank you, sir. So what is the salary in OPEB for inspection 1?
Inspector One's salary is, I don't know, $36,000 a year. Benefits on top of that probably gets to, I don't know, 50-ish?
Probably around 60, close
Okay.
to 60, depending on what their costs are. If they have family coverage or something, it can
Right.
fluctuate a little bit.
Just a general observation, but so if we have a policy saying that a position goes 24 months and remains vacant, then it's subject to review. So I would just ask, no matter how the vote goes, that we stop the clock, because we are intentionally interfering with that process. We can't say that it's going 24 months and we've actively done everything that we can to fill the position, when if the vote goes that way tonight, then we have interfered with the process and contributed to the 24 months of vacancy, not counting how much time the position was vacant, but we didn't advertise it. So I would just ask that if the vote is to use the position's funds, that we don't hold that against those 24 months. Thanks.
It's fine, although the choice not to advertise wasn't a levy court or budget decision, correct? The choice not to advertise wasn't a directive.
It was also not my decision, but
Right.
yes,
But
you're correct.
Right, and so, anyway, positions, so that's fine. So, that's not a part of whatever we're moving forward. We've already made that decision, correct? So this is a secondary conversation. How would this move forward? Is there enough information? Is there enough show of support? If a show of hands dictates that, are we effectively good to go? Commissioner, or Mr. Pettit-Demajian and Commissioner Sweeney.
Commissioner Buxton, hearing the discussion from your vantage point, I would suggest that, and this isn't the right time for a motion, but the way the motion might look would be that you're moving to award the contract to First State, and also directing staff to make the proper budget adjustment from existing personnel costs to cover the cost of the service. And I think that would kind of cover it if that's the way we're going.
Thanks, Commissioner
Effectively, I'm
Buxton.
going to utilize that once you're done.
So that motion would also be not to exceed the salary and OPEB for that position.
We could put a not to exceed in there for sure.
So, wait a minute, I did have another question. I lost it when you start talking about that. It'll come back to me.
And not to be willy-nilly, but this is uncharted waters that I expect to be successful. Who knows what 6 months looks like? 6 months from now, we could revisit the situation. and in theory, could effectively put it back on the table, go out and hire somebody, correct? What we can't do is hire somebody now and then get rid of them 6 months, or her. So this is not a death sentence to the decision. It's a, slow down, let's take a look, see if this works. Yes?
Thanks, sir. So, Mr. Petitmonge, you mentioned that if we did not go with, and I'm going to say defunding the position and moving the funds from personnel over to a contract line, where would the funds come from? You said unrestricted funds?
Yeah, unrestricted fund balance.
Okay, thank you.
In agreement, the way this would work out articulated by our county administrator, Mike Petitmonge. If we are, a show of hands. Moving on that. So really? Oh, well, there we go. So now we got 4. 5-1. So we're good.
What we will do is we will draft up the motion as we believe we, it would be worded, and it'll, is this going to be an action item or you want it on consent agenda?
Doesn't matter to me. Consent's fine.
Well, there'll be a motion in the consent, and you can look at it. If anyone has an objection, you always pull it off the consent agenda for discussion.
That's it, right? Public comments?
Thank you.
Any public comments at this time regarding the conversations? Down and say your piece.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Earl Dempsey. I represent First State Inspection Agency. As a Kent County resident and a Kent County business owner, we look forward to the opportunity of working with you, getting you caught up and just seeing where the future goes. Experience says a lot, 35 years in the industry, and we're here for you. Appreciate the support. Thank you.
Anybody on the phone line? Seeing none, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Buxton. That being said, no public comments. We are adjourned.
So we'll work on that.
Okay.
I need to see you guys in your office.